Well, this is a blast for me. Brock Huard here, getting a chance to host the 19th episode of the season. 19th. We're already in the new year in 2022. And God has been faithful through so many different guests with this journey. And it's been fun with Jason Romano and Jade McCarthy hosting this show. And every time I get the privilege and the opportunity to do so, it is just a gift and a blessing and just a blast to see this platform grow and watch what the Lord is doing as people come in and share their faith story and talk a little football. And that's exactly what we'll do tonight with a good friend of mine, someone I've gotten to know very well over the last year and a half, doing media work with Ben Hartsock, the old Ohio State national champion tight end. Here this week, we crowned a national champion in college football. We'll get to a lot of that conversation with Ben. But Ben was a national champion at Ohio State, won the title in 2002, was a third-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts. You'll hear some of this in his story, in his testimony. And the Lord moved him 5 different spots in the NFL over a 10-year career. Pretty remarkable career for Ben Hartsock. So looking forward to having a conversation with him. You'll see underneath me all night through our conversation with Ben, where you can get the 52-week devotional. And I highly encourage this for your church, for your men's group, for your small group, for people at school, for your kids, an opportunity. And you can go to theincrease.com, you can go to Amazon, and it's a 52-week devotional that just really opens the door to so much conversation, so many great stories and testimonies, similar to this show, similar to the weekly Slant, just trying to bring all of you, the audience, of encouragement and conviction and love, and just bringing God's truth and light through the platform of sports, what Sports Spectrum does so well and has done so well for so long, and really what this show aimed to do when we started 19 weeks ago. And here we are. The playoffs are here. A new national champion is here, and a wonderful conversation with a 10-year NFL vet, a good friend of mine, and a faithful servant of the Lord. And I hope you enjoy this chat that we're going to have with Ben Hartsock. Well, this is a treat. Ben, I don't know if it's going to be as big a treat for you as it is going to be for me. You and I have had a chance to do a number of shows together over on the Sirius radio channel, channel 84. You and I have an absolute blast. This Sports Spectrum Weekly Slant has been a gift, man. It has just been a privilege when I get a chance to host it, which is about once a month or so. I absolutely love it. I love working with you. I think you know that. We have a great time, but we've not had this opportunity. Most of the time when you and I are together, we're talking my bathtubs. We're talking your upbringing at the Ross County Fair. We're talking family, kids. We're talking a lot of sports and football, but we get a chance to talk some faith tonight. And I get to learn a little bit more about you in some fun ways, as does our audience. And I can't wait for that. But we might as well, since it is the crossroads of football and sport and faith, we might as well start on a little bit of football and something that is near and dear to you and me, and that's college football. And you live right down there in Georgia as we tape this tonight. You live not far from Athens, Georgia. So what was Monday night like as the Bulldogs finally, for the first time in 41 years, won a national title?
It feels as though an indescribable weight has been lifted off of this Georgia fan base. You mentioned I grew up in Ohio, played my college football at Ohio State, but I've transplanted our family here, and it's kind of an interesting, unique perspective to not really have a dog in the fight, to watch these fans ache and hurt and carry that burden of all they want is to be good. All they want is to hold that championship trophy. And they've tried for so long. It's been since 1980. And it's really amazing now as I've got a couple friends that are still driving back from the game as we speak, to just hear their story, to hear the elation, the sense of accomplishment that these fans have brought to reality.
I think you burned your mouth the night of the championship game on some buffalo chicken sauce or something. I tend to remember that story as well. But you did have a bunch of friends over, right? Your community down there, your church community's got a lot of Bulldogs. I know Georgia Tech is in the state of Georgia, but it is a Bulldog, dog nation they like to call it.
Yeah.
So what was your home like Monday night as they actually did it, right? Because it's been a curse. They've gotten close, as you said, they've gotten close to that mountaintop, but they can't beat Alabama. They can't beat Nick Saban. They can't. And when they finally could with their little walk-on quarterback, what were your friends in that Georgia community in your home doing that night?
It's funny. I've watched two teams now this season slay their dragon. I was at Ohio State, Michigan, where my Buckeye team was slain, and I got the luxury to stand next to John Jansen, a friend of ours, an All-American at Michigan that bleeds maize and blue, and I knew the game was over. I watched what Ohio State was doing, and I asked John earlier in that game, midway through that game, I said, John, your Wolverines are doing it. And he was like, no, don't say that. He was so unwilling to accept that it might be a reality until it was a reality. And I say that because it was the same thing last night with my Georgia fans, my Georgia friends, that all the way through that game, halftime, everybody's uneasy. Everybody's uncomfortable. Just the nervous whispers. And even it was truly not until that interception at the end of the game that truly sealed it, that they were willing to finally accept that they had finally climbed to the top of this mountain. And it was really awesome to get to watch my friends go through that.
We're going to get into your testimony and your faith journey, and I'm excited to dig into some of that. But I'd be remiss if we wouldn't talk a little bit about David. He was playing quarterback. He wasn't redheaded. He's not a shepherd boy, but his name is Stetson Bennett the fourth, right? Amongst all of these just giants, you and I like to joke about some of these just athletes that we were around, right? What do you call Dwight Freeney? What was he?
Cyborg. He's not human. Yeah, he's a cyborg.
Not human. They're just so incredibly gifted. And on that field Monday night in Indianapolis were all sorts of cyborgs going to be drafted in the first round, going to play in the NFL, right? And then all of a sudden there's this former walk-on quarterback called the Mailman, and he's 5'9", right? I mean, seriously, there are some parallels to the Old Testament David and Goliath. He's not supposed to be there. He's not the 5-star. They tried to replace him over and over and over and over again. And yet, wasn't it kind of just awesome? Just an extraordinary, almost like a story out of the Bible of God just taking one of his and saying, I know he's the most ordinary guy on this field, but he's going to be extraordinary when it matters.
Well, and the Bible is chock full of people that you wouldn't pick for that story. You wouldn't pick Moses for that story. You wouldn't pick Abraham. You wouldn't pick David. You wouldn't pick all of these cast-offs with garbage and baggage and things that really don't measure up in the same way you wouldn't pick Stetson Bennett. And that's we joke a lot on our show, Brock, that I love an underdog. Even though I played at a blue blood program like Ohio State, I still resonate and identify with that storyline. And you're exactly right. Stetson Bennett's a guy that was overlooked his entire life, but that same struggle, that same frustration that he lived, I think was his greatest asset in the championship game, where you've got to think through the 3 quarters of that national championship game, things aren't going well. Stetson's not living up. And then all of a sudden he fumbles at the worst possible time. And my Georgia fans or my Georgia friends in my basement are all sitting there saying, there it is. That's what we know. That's what we're used to seeing with Georgia football. But doggone it, that young man stood back up and went to the sideline and regrouped and came back out and looked down the barrel of that gun that is Alabama and found a way to win. And it's so inspiring.
So when was Ben Hartsock's faith journey begun? When was it written? When was it down there on that farm in Chillicothe, Ohio? When did God knock on Ben Hartsock's heart and use you in pretty extraordinary ways?
Yeah. I grew up in a Christian home, going to a church in Southern Ohio, and went through it was a Presbyterian church, went through the confirmation and all of those rites of passage. And I'm so thankful for that upbringing of what, you wake up on a Sunday morning and you go to a Sunday school and you go to church. But my faith was so shallow and so nominal that it like many, your life that you, the individual, that you're forming happens in college. And for me, there were so many exciting things going on in college that here's this kid from a small town, a farm community. My dad's a farmer. My mom's a teacher. For me to go to Ohio State, we didn't have athletic pedigree. My dad wasn't a high school coach like yours was. My dad didn't even play sports in high school. So for us to get to go to Ohio State, that was just so much excitement. And we were doing well. We were chasing championships, and things were happening that amidst all of that, life change was happening. I'm figuring out. I grew up as the kid as the big fish in the small pond, and so I did a lot of the right things. Again, raised in a Christian home, but I was doing all the right things for all the wrong reasons. And I avoided alcohol, didn't go to the party scene, did all the things that were the right things that you would say are Christian, but it was in no way, shape, or form to honor God, to honor our Creator. It was because, well, mom and dad taught me about my reputation, and I'm have a lot of expectations for my community. Things are going well for me, and so I need to live up to those. But when you go to college, you start figuring out, well, why don't I go to the parties? Why don't I drink when all my teammates are? They seem to be having a tremendous time doing this. But I had a chaplain that reached out, and our team chaplain Tom Rohde, who still is at Ohio State, reached out to me, and my wife now, she was my girlfriend then, Amy, and we went into their home, and he started to mentor me, and he started to teach me about the Bible in a way that I didn't understand. Like I would go to team Bible studies, and he would talk about the 4 Gospels, and I'd say, yeah, sure, the 4 Gospels. Yep. Okay. No, completely faking it till you make it. But he planted that seed, and my salvation is one of a journey of so many people's testimonies come down to that one. I remember I lost this person in my life, or I had this trial that overcome, and God revealed himself. My story is a little different than that. My story was I'm a naturally nervous energy kind of guy. You might pick that up in how I move a little bit. I was a guy that at every Young Life or Campus Crusade for Christ, Athletes in Action event that I went to, and they asked for the salvation, they did the invitation, I made sure to pray the prayer every time. So I don't know which one stuck. I wanted to make sure to lock it down several times, but that's kind of my story. One of God has been moving in my life regardless of my level of knowledge of it. But as I've grown in my faith, and as I've grown in maturity, my trust has grown, and I've been able to see with a little more clarity where God is moving in my life.
We had a little fun with Stetson Bennett the fourth, a little 5'9" quarterback, little engine that could, right? And all the grit and just perseverance that was developed through the ups and downs of his journey. You were, if I have my story right, and I've heard it from you a few times, weren't you the last offer from Ohio State?
They wouldn't admit that, but I know that. You've got to give the kind of the context of our expectation. I was offered the scholarship at a camp at Ohio State going into my senior year, and I never forget the excitement of going to call my parents. I had to go to a payphone. That date myself there. I had to go to a payphone and make a collect call to my parents. Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe it. They offered me a scholarship. I cannot believe this. And my dad didn't tell me this till years later, but he hung up the phone after celebrating with me momentarily, and he talked to my mom. He goes, "Our boy's going to play for the Buckeyes." And he said to my mom, "Won't it be great if he also gets to play?" Like they just thought that I was going to be one of those guys that wears the uniform and practices with the team, and that was it for us. So no, I wasn't a highly touted recruit, and Ohio State really tried to hold my scholarship back to maybe offer to somebody else as the signing day. You know how there's that gamesmanship. They kind of wanted me to be a preferred walk-on, but it turned out that I got the scholarship. So they weren't doing that to the true blue chips, that's for sure.
But it was the chaplain at Ohio State, right, that started to plant some seeds. And now that you're a little bit younger than me, your daughters are starting high school, and your beautiful wife Amy, you've been married to now for a couple decades as well. And there's some similarities in our journey and our path. And I am curious, as you look now, and you could kind of look in the rear view mirror, right? Not just all in the windshield, but you can look now at the mileposts in the background in the rear view mirror. if it was the chaplain at Ohio State that started to plant some seeds, man, your journey, right? It's meandered through a bunch of different communities, a bunch of different professional teams. As you look back now, how did the Lord shape you, your testimony, your faith in those different stops along the way?
Well, so much. It's easy to look at my career. My NFL playing career was a long one. I played 10 years, and I'm so thankful for that. But it was with 5 different teams, and I point to the most impactful stop was my first with the Indianapolis Colts, a team that you and I both played for.
Man, we just missed each other too. Just
I
one
know
season, just 1 year.
I got there in the spring of 04. You left there right in the winter of 04, right? Like it was that close. You're
that close.
Your name was mentioned as I get to a new city with the Indianapolis Colts. Even though I am a national champion at Ohio State, an all conference player, you still get to the NFL and you think, ooh, do I really have it? Remember, I mentioned I'm a nervous energy guy. That's kind of a thread in my story. But I was so thankful to go to an Indianapolis Colts team that was led by someone of character like Tony Dungy. And it's not just.
Did you know that on draft day? Like when you got?
Oh, yeah.
Second round.
Third round.
Second round. So second round.
Close. Second pick of the third round.
But you went through the draft process, and were you hoping and thinking like, okay, I'm a Midwest kid. Tony Dungy's there. They've been really good. 02, 03, like AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
He's a man of faith. Were you in some ways hoping that would be the phone that would ring?
Not at all. No, they had just drafted Dallas Clark in the first round the previous year, another great tight end out of Iowa and a long line of Iowa tight ends. So we had all no way, shape, or form were thinking that I would be heading to Indianapolis. We were thinking Green Bay or the Buffalo Bills. There was more of a tight end specific need. And you know what's funny is you learn these things after the fact. I talked to the player personnel guy that he went to another team and I was at another team and talking about that draft class. And he said, yeah, we don't know why we drafted you. And that was totally a Tony pick. We didn't need a tight end. We didn't need to spend that high, but Tony thought that you were, wanted to have you a part of that team. And that, what a great feeling for me to have that Tony Dungy thought enough of me that he really went outside maybe the quote unquote plan, but Tony Dungy built his team and Bill Polian, they brought in guys of character.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that are, influential in my faith. I mean, Hunter Smith was a punter in that team that took me under his wing, taught me how to pray. Jeff Saturday was a star center, Pro Bowl center on that team. He was a big brother, hosted Bible studies at his house. So I was so thankful to, as a young married man, Amy and I had only been married for less than a year at that point when we go to Indianapolis, to walk into an NFL environment that a lot of guys, Brock, we know get lost in that realm. The celebrity, the opportunities, the fun, the excitement, the glitz, the glamour of it. I walked into the team that maybe had the healthiest culture of, let me show you how to handle this whirlwind that is an NFL experience, was so impactful. And while I'm still close with a lot of guys on that team.
Then why didn't it work at Indy, and why did the Lord move you 5 different times in 10 years?
Well, I don't know that I have a ton of clarity on that, because if I were picking, I still would have liked to have stayed on that Indianapolis team. They went to win a Super Bowl. Like I could have been on I could have had a Super Bowl ring. But I think that God was moving in my life, that he had to strain me. He had to stress me. And things didn't go well with the Indianapolis Colts. And a guy that I know you hold dear to your heart, another team chaplain, Eric Simpson, was wildly impactful on my shallow but growing and deepening faith, that he was able to walk me through real professional struggle. You're here, you're a 23, 24-year-old rookie with the Indianapolis Colts, and you can't smell the field and things aren't coming to you naturally. And that Colts team is a fast moving train that it's hard to jump onto. And I'm trying to be a man that's living out my faith very actively. And Eric Simpson taught a Bible study in rookie training camp, or in training camp as a rookie, that changed my life. It's become the verse that I don't know if life verses are still a thing, but the thing that I point to that was a real fork in the road moment in my life is that I'm a believer now, right? I'm an unquestioned, unwavering follower of Christ. Now what? I'm a football player. How does that work?
Mm.
But Eric Simpson did a Bible study on Romans 12, talking about being a Romans 12 man. And Romans 12:1 said, therefore, I offer you, brothers, in view of God's mercies, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to the Lord. And that was a real light switch for me.
Mm.
That it didn't matter what I was doing, whether I'm lifting weights, working out, running, lifting, studying tape, as long as I'm doing it for the honor and for the glory of God, that is my true and proper worship. That was a game changer for me.
Mm.
And that story should be, well, that's great. You figured it out and you go be starter and you win a Super Bowl and off you go. No, I still didn't play in Indianapolis. God saw fit for me to go to another team. And thankfully, I got the opportunity to go to another team. Many guys, after they blow their first shot, that's it. That's the end of the story for your NFL career. God had different plans for me. I went to another team. Things went well, and off I went.
Yeah, that other team just a little different than Indy. The leadership a little different. The language just a little different. You go to Rex Ryan and the New York Football Jets, correct? After your time in Indy?
That was a couple teams later. I went from the Colts to the Tennessee Titans, the Atlanta Falcons, where I make home now, to the Jets, and then finally with the Carolina Panthers. So
Goodness gracious,
long and winding road.
Man, you were like the Israelites. You just went you went
wandering the desert.
But foundationally, your time at Ohio State, your time in
100%.
Indianapolis, a Romans 12 man, you probably then, when those doors opened, relationally in Carolina, relationally in Atlanta, relationally in New York, I'm going to guess the Lord used you and built community in each and every one of those stops.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brock. And I go to a Tennessee Titans team that doesn't have the same foundation of high character guys. There were great guys on that team, but I'm just saying the conglomeration of guys that it was different.
Mm-hmm.
But so I go to Tennessee and I have the opportunity to host Bible study in my own house. I get the opportunity to be a Jeff Saturday the way that he was for someone else. And it gives me chills even to think about today. There's a guy that a teammate of mine with with the Tennessee Titans that is a pastor now, and he has spoken and given me unfairly or uncomfortably given me credit as to helping lead him to full-time vocational ministry. And I just can't hardly believe. I'm honestly a little uncomfortable with getting any credit in that story. But yeah, I go to Tennessee and I'm able to be in more of a leadership. And it's that foundation I had with the Indianapolis Colts that allowed me, I think, to thrive in the meat grinder that is kind of the journeyman NFL career that I had.
I know you're uncomfortable doing that, but isn't that really, you're just a part of it. I know that you're humble, South Ohio, Chillicothe, Ohio roots right there, that you don't want to say, hey, I led this guy to the Lord and I led him into ministry, but it was the Lord using you.
Sure.
Right? It was using your time with Jeff Saturday and Eric Simpson. And it was, your chaplain at Ohio State. You were used, which is really anybody that's taking this in tonight, you're taking it in, and we're so glad and thankful you are. And maybe you're a young aspiring athlete. Maybe you're, faith is shallow right now. Maybe you're deep in that faith journey of yours and your walk with the Lord. But I think the more we just Romans 12, let go. Okay, Lord, use me. Right. And in those uncomfortable times too.
Yeah.
And there were uncomfortable times, I am sure, all the way along that decade journey for you. But Lord, just use me to just glorify you.
Yeah. And really in my biggest struggle I was in the early process of getting cut from the Indianapolis Colts. I remember going to Eric Simpson, that chaplain, and I say, man, like, I'm bottoming out here. Like I trust God that I know he's working in this, but man, it sure seems like I am stepping in every crack along the way. And he gave me Psalm 62. And the crux of that verse is that the Lord is my rock and my salvation, and that I can only rely on him. And so as a guy that when I got to the NFL, here's how I walked into the building. I said, don't screw this up. Just hold on. Do you know how many people would give anything to be where you're at? And guess what I did? I played as tight as humanly possible. And it didn't go well there. And thankfully, I got that second shot with the Tennessee Titans, and I was able to truly surrender it. I would say, okay, God, I know that you already know whether or not I'm going to make this team or whether my time in the NFL is done. I just get to be a part to watch it. I just get to be a part of watching this thing play out. And that was so releasing for me to play loose, play fast, play the way that God really created me to play, because I was relying on him.
Play in freedom.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, right? Just is this day and this opportunity and the weekly slant this week, you and I got a chance to be a part of it, is just 2 days after Georgia wins national championship. And how many parallels there are, how many ups and downs, how many times Georgia's there, and how many times they played just tight in those moments and they just couldn't get it done. And their gaskets were just blown on the biggest stage at just the wrong time. And yet it was this week. It was on that Monday for the first time in 41 years, after a fumble with a walk-on quarterback that's not the 5-star guy, right? That he's the one that just says, okay, I'm not going to be the one, and Stetson Bennett said this after the game, I'm not going to be the one to let this group down. I'm going to go cut it loose. I'm going to trust myself, the gifts that I have, go play free, and boom, 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 touchdown, boom, 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 touchdown. And here's Georgia and all your fun neighbors and your fun community no longer having to languish in the, we're just going to find a way to mess it up. They go in their freedom and in their joy and play and go and win a national championship, man. Pretty cool.
Brock, you and I have so much fun on our radio show because I think we like pointing people back to what matters in college football. And the parallels, the life lessons that play out each and every season in a college football team, whether you're the team that wins it or you're the team that loses it. There are spectacular life lessons that Ohio State had losing to Oregon and losing to Michigan, that Michigan has in losing to Georgia in the semifinal. And part of what makes college special is it's not the NFL, it's not the business. And we try our best to point people back to, we love college because we watch these young men struggle and strain and go through that adversity. I can tell you my story from the NFL, but it's different when it's in college and you're young and figuring it out. And we as fans, if we allow ourselves, we learn those same lessons. We can learn from Stetson Bennett and apply it to being a salesperson or being a project leader or whatever it is you do in your day-to-day life. But so often we focus on something different, whether it's some other distraction along the way becomes the focus. And it's no. This is the special part of this. This is, it's so much of it parallels our faith as well, that God's there doing, moving, setting things up every step of the way. But I know in my own life, I've got plenty of examples and will continue to say, oh no, no. But in the end, it always comes back to, it was right here is what we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, in the end, Lord, Romans 12, move me out of the way. Offer my body as a living sacrifice to worship you. And when we do that, the fruit is abundant. I can't believe how much fun that was, Ben. You and I have spent, I don't know how many hours and hours and hours doing shows, but this has been super, super rewarding, man. I love you, brother. Continue to be a Romans 12 man, and all that you're doing in the media now, as a husband, as a dad, which I know you love as well, and just sure appreciate you, bro.
It's an absolute joy, a privilege. Thankful for our friendship. Thankful that God brought us close together, so close with the Colts back in 2004, but even more grateful that he's done it now through the world of media.
Thank you, Ben. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ben Hartsock. He just wears it. He lives it. He wears it. You know exactly what is on his heart. And I think on his heart tonight, you hear just, Lord taking a very ordinary farm boy out of South Ohio and turning it into a pretty extraordinary career, both at Ohio State and then ultimately on into the NFL as well. And as I watch these playoffs now, maybe it's part of being 46 or nearing 46 years of age, and the NFL playoffs will get going. I watched the national championship game on Monday. I had tears in my eyes. Yeah, my eyes were swelling up with big old crocodile tears. I just so enjoy the stories. I so enjoy watching, certainly the Christian man out there, just as clay being molded for massive opportunities to give God the glory. That's what Sports Spectrum aimed to do with the weekly slant. This, the 19th episode, will continue on through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, and just take the ordinary, take this platform and say, Lord, use it for your extraordinary mission, use it for your kingdom, use it for your glory. Certainly part of Ben's story, certainly part of Georgia, the footballs, and Stetson Bennett's story, certainly going to be part of the NFL story with Derek Carr and a number of the believers that'll be playing. So it's going to be so fun to watch that unfold. I said to you guys at the beginning, go to theincrease.com, go to Amazon. You can find a 52-week devotional. If you've been searching for something to just consistently get in the Word, an opportunity to gather with others, to get in the Word, to hear amazing testimonies, to be challenged, encouraged, and loved, it's waiting there for you at theincrease.com. Thank you for tuning in. We can't wait to do this through January and into the Super Bowl as well. Episode number 20 will be coming your way next Wednesday night. God bless you.